Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's Kenyon Dixon, and you are locked in to Rolling Out Music.
What's going on, everybody? Back again here for Rolling Out Music. Your host, Malik Brown, of course, here, Rolling Out Music. We talk to some of the best. We talk to some of the best doing the biggest things in the music industry. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm with my guy, Kenyon Dixon. Kenyon, how you doing today, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I appreciate you pronouncing my name right. Nobody ever gets it right, man, so thank you.
I'm pretty sure they say, what, Kenyon?
Yeah, I get Kenyon more than I get the actual pronunciation of my name, man. So that was beautiful to hear.
Hey, man, look, we got to get it right. Got to get it right for
Yes,
you, man. Got
sir.
to get it right. But thank you so much again, like I said, for coming on earlier. I said thank you again for coming on. Speak with us about everything you got going on, man. First of all, hey, gotta clap it up. Grammy nominated again. Gotta get that up. Gotta get it up. Gotta get it up.
Thank you,
For sure.
man.
But I mean, when you hear things like that, Grammy nominated, when you're nominated for a Grammy, like one of the biggest awards out there, what are your emotions? What are your feelings like when you get that call or that email? How do you even find out?
Man, I found out the same way the public found out. Like I was watching, watching the nominations on TV, and so when I saw my name popped up, it was just a surreal moment, man. I think it means more to me. One, this being my first solo nomination as an artist, and then two, I'm like a legit independent artist, like never been signed to a label, like no equivalent. You know what I mean? Like so, just the years of work, just to see this like piece of it paying off is like amazing. But to me, it's a win for the whole community. Like I'm an advocate for people who care about the quality of music and especially artists who do it independently. So for me, it meant a lot that they had an example um, of what can happen when you keep working. You know what I mean? And the proof that it can still be about the music. Because I think a lot of the times when we think about accolades in the industry, like it's strictly just politics. But to see someone like myself be rewarded in this space, I think was bigger than me. I think it was really inspirational for other artists like me. I think I am like a type of artist and I represent like a community of creatives. So yeah, man, amazing feeling though. I'm still on a high from everything.
What do you think a nomination like that, and you talk about, like how you're independent, you've been doing this your own, and things like that. What do you think it does for those other independent artists, that are kind of they don't know, should I stay this independent route? Should I sign with a label? How am I going to get my name out there? What do I have to do? What do you think your nomination does for those artists out there?
I really think it just adds fuel to the journey. I think it shows everybody how much more is possible for this stuff to happen. Because again, like to to see an independent artist get nominated for something, I think the surprise element is that we're programmed to think that this only happens to like the biggest of artists. You know what I mean? And so being an independent artist, you're already a part of a smaller community. Um, because you choose not to be mainstream. So for a lot of uh a lot of other independent artists, man, I think that it just makes them realize that they can make music that they love and not have to compromise and still be rewarded. And that's what I've heard a lot of them say as well. Just it has kind of like inspired them on their journey to keep making the music that they're making and know that this is something that's actually tangible.
Love that. Tell us about the creation of Lucky. What went into that, and how was it, working on that?
Man, Lucky was an interesting one because I was almost done with my album. Um, and like towards the end, like when I'm still searching for something, I'll go back and listen to like old tracks to see if I missed anything. And so I had passed on that track, like literally. And I had a moment where I was like just feeling super creative and I didn't feel like producing anything. And I'm like, I need something to write to. So I went uh, and looked through the text thread with me and my homie Marcus Curtis, who produced it. And I listened to that and I heard Lucky and I was like, I heard the track. And I was like, all right, I think I, want to try something to this. So I sent it to him because he had sent it to me maybe like a year before. So I sent it to him and was like, is this track still available? You got to check with producers, man, because they'll send you something and then you would create a whole something. And they're like, oh yeah, I gave this to this person. I like, so he was like, nah, it's still available. And so I pulled it up in the house. My first attempt, like the first verse, I kind of like freestyled that verse. I just pulled it up and kind of started vibing. Then for like the next couple of days, I would be in the car getting like different ideas for the song. And somehow it turned into a whole record. But my inspiration behind the record was really just to appreciate the Black woman. I think, especially considering the social climate that we're in, and like we see so many just fruitless debates online, and it's like Black women especially are always being like attacked. And I wanted to take a different approach to put them in the conversation, and let's talk about the appreciation of them and like your person in general. And just that it's just about that feeling of finding somebody that you really love and letting them know just how special they are and how lucky you feel to have experienced them.
And it kind of that I guess we can go into it kind of leeways into my next question. Of course, the type of music you make, it kind of brings, of course, like the old R&B vibes of love and fighting for the one you want and things like that.
Yes.
Is none of the toxic stuff, I guess they call it today. But why that lane? Why did you want to go into that lane? Because it seems like you kind of, I guess, feels like a resurrection or a revival of that old honestly. But why did you want to go into that lane?
I think that's genuinely who I am as a person. That's like a space that I live my life in. Like I gravitate more towards love in life than hate or any type of negativity. And so a huge part of it also is being a church kid. I think when you're like strictly raised in church, you typically tend to like ease out of that. It's not like a hard jump into like a different world of when you're interested in music. And so for me, singing about that still gives me a feeling reminiscent of what I know from growing up. You know what I mean? Like in the church, singing about love and God, and like this is a comfortable place for me. And again, it's the life I live. Like I know we get a lot of hate as a modern music community and modern creatives for making like toxic music, and I understand, because that's the some people live that life. They're just talking about their experiences, but like that's not how I live, so it's not true to me. So writing about what's true to me is the love I've experienced and the love I desire. I think that's just a space that my music lives in.
Do you also feel like, I guess, the shift, I guess, or the conversation, of course, with R&B now, with the toxic masculinity and things like that? Do you feel like it has a lot to do with, uh, I guess, like how people view men now? Like, oh, you're singing, or you're talking about your emotions. Oh, you're soft and things like that. Do you feel like that's where that shift in R&B kind of went these past few years?
100%, man. 100%. I just had a conversation with somebody recently, who's been in the game for a long time, and they were telling me about how R&B became expensive, like from their perspective of when they were coming up in the game, and they started labels started to realize how rappers could get a bigger reach for less of an investment. With the type of videos they shot, they didn't need like glam squads and like all the stuff you'd have to pay for traditionally for R&B artists. And so they made a great point that like when labels started recognizing that as lucrative, smart R&B artists started realizing if they made stuff more that sound more like that, the labels will push it. And that changed my perspective about how we got in this space. Because when you think about the business aspect of it, is only about the return. As far as like what the machine will invest in you. And when I thought about that, I'm like, I think that is why we now have that parallel where R&B music is more like rap music, and it's because everybody's trying to compete in this space for visibility, and you realize that you can get more of an investment if it sounds closer like what they consider a formula. You know what I mean? So I do think that that has kind of a, that's kind of how we got there with R&B not being so classic anymore. I love the evolution. I love the freedom that creatives have. I do think that that's important. Like, we live a lot of different lives now, and people are able to not be like punked into making a certain type of music. But that also has its cons because we've lost the system. And the system, as far as before you could put something out, you had 10 other people who could tell you that this sucked and it probably isn't a good idea that you release this music. And so now we don't have that. So it's like, it's a pro and a con, but it has for sure lended to why we're in this space as, as R&B connoisseurs and creatives.
For you, what was your goal? What was your vision for the R&B you love?
My biggest, so two things. A vision I always have when making music is to just show that modern artists can create sustainable music. That's one thing, because I think that there's this idea that like artists today can't make classic records. I'm always willing to challenge that, like with every song I make. Two, my biggest thing with the R&B you love was to create a conversation that lends to us discussing our inspirations. So like, with the R&B love, I tapped into a bunch of different eras of R&B. So like, there's like Nas to like Babyface on there, and like Marvin Gaye, and then there's 2000s R&B where it's literally about 2000s R&B. The importance of that for me is because with today's generation of listeners, and it's fine, but with technology, and social media, sometimes we get versions of songs and we don't know like the derivatives of them, and we think that this third remix is the original version, like, of these songs, And so as a lover of music, not just a creative, I'm big on trying to educate people on where we get this stuff from. So what I love most about it is that when the song dropped, when the album dropped, it's like, oh, this song reminds me of Marvin Gaye. Great. Let's talk about Marvin, how important he is with the music I make. Oh, this reminds me of Babyface record. Glad you said that. So Babyface did, you know what I mean? It kind of it set the music community up to be able to have conversation. And so that was a big part of it. Just triggering that nostalgia too. I think that we love nostalgia and things that feel familiar. So yeah, those were my two, biggest goals in making the R&B love.
It's funny. I started laughing when you said that because there's a couple TikToks out there. I know a lot of people make TikToks about like a 40-year-old dating maybe like a 32-year-old or something like that. And they're like, they play this song in the car and they're like, oh, this is it
Yeah.
just reminds me that, but that's exactly like the perfect explanation of like the three remixes, but nobody knows the original song and nobody knows where the couple came from and things like that. So I think that was really big. For you, who were your early inspirations? Starting out in music.
Starting out in music, my early inspirations were mainly gospel because I couldn't listen to R&B music. So I grew up on a lot of Kirk Franklin. My dad was quartet singer, so I also grew up on a lot of Kansas spirituals, Mighty Clouds of Joy. My R&B fusion came when I was really introduced to like Brent Jones and TP Mob and Dawkins and Dawkins. Dawkins and Dawkins was like when I knew that something was different, because it didn't sound like the traditional R&B that I got. And it made so much sense that when I got into R&B early, one of my earliest influences was Joe and Tyrese. And so listening to them, it was crazy to find out that Eric Dawkins and the Underdogs like were producing a lot of the R&B that I was interested in. So it made sense why I gravitated towards it, because my introduction to them was indirectly by Dawkins and Dawkins. I knew that this was a new sound, but it like perfectly ushered me into loving R&B the way that I did. But yeah, Tyrese, Joe, Tank, also Anita Baker. Love Anita Baker. I remember like one of my older sisters would play Anita a lot. And so I kind of got exposed to her early. Then a lot of jazz. I grew up, I'm like a trained dancer. I don't really dance anymore, but I have been training like technically too since I was like 9 years old. At the studio that I was at, a lot of it, they specialized in tap. You had to learn how to tap dance to go there. And that ended up being like my main concentration. With tap, jazz goes hand in hand. So early on, I was introduced to a lot of like Count Basie and Ella and Duke Ellington, you know what I mean? So I had a pretty well-rounded palette of music, I would say.
And you talked about, of course, Tyrese and Joe, and you've worked with Tyrese before, right?
Yeah.
How was that experience working with him?
Oh man, it was great, man. Tyrese is a great talent. He's a really great talent, and there was a lot to be said. Him being from the area that I'm from in Watts, I think that was a whole different learning experience. Just how we talked about earlier about getting a nomination as an independent artist, like what that meant to other artists. Like Tyrese coming from my area, like you don't get a lot of creatives from Watts. You know what I mean? And especially not like R&B singers. So to be able to watch him come out of a similar environment, that was also like inspiring. And so I got a chance to work with Tyrese. My first professional writing placement was with Tyrese, which was the first Grammy-nominated project I was a part of. It was the first time I performed at the Grammys, which was with him. Then I toured. I went on a tour with Tyrese for like 6, 7 years or so, singing background. Wrote more of his music. Wrote a lot of his TGT stuff, and so yeah, man, he really gave me a lot of my early experiences that kind of shaped my perspectives and workflow in the game. But I definitely I learned a lot from him, man, and he's a great voice, one of my favorite voices in R&B.
If there was somebody that you would want to work with in 2024, who would that person be and why?
Anita Baker for sure. I'm that big of an Anita Baker fan. Like I'm probably Anita Baker's like #1 fan, bro. And so why I especially want to work with Anita Baker because I think it's a challenge that I want to take on. I think that a lot of times when we bring the artists we love, like newer artists, when we bring the artists we grew up on and we love into our spaces, I don't see them represented the best a lot of the times with the music. I think that we create music and we don't find the middle ground. We just make them perform on, in our world. And I think that I'm really great at evaluating artists and like allowing them to flourish and showcase their work. Like I'm able to build around what I know about the artist versus just trying to make them do what I do. And so I think that in 2024, I can create a collaborative effort with me and Anita that adds to both of our catalogs, that people who don't know me and only know Anita Baker will hear this and still say, like, wow, Anita, this is still the Anita that, I know. So I'm willing to take on that challenge because I think that, that's just important to show that they can still like shine. Look at RL. RL came and smashed 2000s R&B, you know what I mean? And I was so proud of that just because it made him feel comfortable enough to be himself. He didn't have to do anything else other than be RL, you know what I mean? But I think that that's important to know how to set the stage for people to do what they do and not try and force them into your world. So yeah, I just think that we could make a great record that could live today and still live with her classic catalog.
We're definitely going to manifest that for you next. Definitely manifest that. It may have been last week or 2 weeks ago. I saw you on Twitter. You're talking about the dream. And all sleeping on. I gotta ask you. And this may be the dream, but I gotta ask you, who do you think is most underrated R&B artists in the in 2020, 2010s, most underrated.
Most underrated R&B artist. I feel like I'm still there are two that I mean, you know, they're more classic, but Joe and D'Angelo, as much as people talk about them, I don't think people really understand like their catalog. I've never seen Joe and D'Angelo get the credit that they really should. Like for music lovers, they get it, but mainstream, you know what I mean? They've never really gotten they are like exceptional. Like they're not regular artists, you know what I mean? And I think that maybe it goes over everybody's head. Like this man Joe is perfect, bro. Like vocally singing, like he don't hit wrong notes. Like I've literally watched him live. Like how did you do that? You know what I mean? And like D'Angelo is just like he's a savant. Like this man is incredible. You know what I mean? So underrated. Yeah, I feel like after all these years, I've seen artists that I feel are maybe not as talented as them get much bigger praise and applause that I would love to see them get because they have really inspired like generations of artists. You know what I mean? So yeah, I would go with them for underrated from a more classic standpoint.
Cool. Last question. 2024. How can we find love in 2024? How can we get that woman? How can that woman get that man? How can we find a positive way to find love in
Yeah,
2024?
man. Listen to my music because I drop a lot of the keys in there. You know what I mean? I'm always trying to. People gonna listen to music. They may not listen to you. They will listen to music. So if you listen to the lyrics, I always try and put something in there. Um, Stay away from these gender war podcasts, man, because I'm so tired of them. Like that for
50-50.
sure. Yo, oh my God, man. Like, please stop listening to this stuff. Uh Another big thing I've learned, man, is just to listen to people. I think that is a huge component to finding love. A lot of times we interact and listen only to respond. And if you listen to people, you will find your people. Listen to people tell you what they want. A lot of times we think that we like to give like a synopsis of what people express. So like somebody will express their feelings and we'll like sum it up for them. Like listen to what they're saying. They're telling you exactly what they want, what they're into. And I think that that's important because that lets you know right then if it's something worth like investing into. So yeah, I'm big on communication and listening, but I think listening will serve us well, and not always having to speak, but being in the position to just learn the people around us and the environment, and just what I mean. I think that can help.
Kenyon, where can we find the music? Where can we find you? You got anything coming up? Let the people know.
Man, if you love R&B, real R&B, I have it available on your favorite DSP, Kenyon Dixon, literally on all DSPs. All my socials are Kenny Got Soul, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook is Kenyon Dixon. And you'll be able to find me on the road. I'm going back on tour in 2024, early 2024, and I'm excited to do the R&B Love Live and just I love my community, my supporters and everything like that. So I can't wait. We always have a good time on the road. So and I have more music coming out that I'm excited about. I'm releasing I wouldn't say a deluxe version of the album. I'm breaking it up and presenting it in a different way. But more music connected to the R&B love. So yeah, you'll have several ways to keep up with me for sure.
Well, if y'all heard it here first, Kenyon, thank you so much for coming
Yes,
on stage
sir.
with us, for you rolling out for everything that you've done and continue to go, man.
Appreciate you, man.
For sure, for sure. Everybody, thanks for checking us out. This is Rolling Out Music, Girls Malik Brown. My special guest, Kenyon Dixon, and we are out.